So, hello everyone. This is Dr. B from Steps to the Future, coming to you from a different location. So, you see, my background is different. You might see a little bit of lagging in the photo, in the picture, because you know how technology can be sometimes. So, I'm actually in Rhode Island. I came here for a graduation and to celebrate my oldest son's birthday, and I'm still here. So I don't have all my little toys. I don't have my extra microphone. I don't have my extra monitor to do all of this. But you know what? We're going to get through it anyway and figure it out. I can see that my screen is freezing up a little bit. So guys, just deal with it because my co-host will pick up the slack and we'll just get it going. So this evening, we are actually going to be talking about what happens, how do students thrive after orientation? So, all people who are going to college will be having an orientation. If they haven't gone already, they'll be having it in July, August, whatever the school decides. And from that, they'll learn all kinds of information about what they should expect their first year. But what happens after orientation? You know, in talking to students and in also looking at some of the research and the literature that's out there, we have these 15 common problems that first year students may have. So we're going to talk about those a little bit. Hopefully give you some problem solving strategies. So parents, if you're listening, share this with your students. Students, if you're listening, share it with your friends. And for those of you that are not here live and watching it on the replay, you know you can always reach out to us for additional information. Yeah, I see it's still lagging a little bit, but that's okay. We will figure that out. So, so let me bring my guests on first of all. Let me bring my folks on the screen. Yes. So, ladies, I am going to have you introduce yourself the way I see you on the screen. So, for those of you that are new to the second Monday, this is my crew. This is part of my crew here. We have been doing this for a few months where we're trying to help folks move on to the next step. We're all members of the Independent Educational Consultants Association. We're also members of the Black IEC's affinity group, and we all have a vast range of knowledge in the work that we do. So like I said, I'm going to start with you the way I see you on my screen. So Antoinette, you're first on my screen.
Good afternoon, evening, morning, depending on where you are, who's watching. I'm Antoinette Batiste. I am based in San Jose, California, and I focus on working with high school students heading to college and also community college students heading to four-year institutions. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Antoinette. So next on my screen is Amy, and as I said, there may be a lag, so we'll get through it.
Hi. Oh my goodness, excuse me. Hi, I'm Amy Jasper, and I am located in Richmond, Virginia, and I work with students also who are looking at four-year institutions. And thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Amy. And next we move on to April.
You always sneak up on me. I don't know why. Um, I'm April Paris Joseph. I am located in Bellevue outside of Seattle, Washington. I work with students that are transitioning also from the high school to college process. And I work with all students, but I have a special place in my heart for those athletes that are also going through the recruiting process in this whole big behemoth of a thing.
Thank you, April. Rosellen.
Hello, my name is Rosellen McCombie. I am located in Oviedo, Florida, which is just outside of Orlando. I also work with students from high school that are transitioning to college, and focus would include homeschoolers, student athletes, or those interested in a gap year program.
And Lisa.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Thomas, and I am here in the San Francisco Bay Area, about 15 miles north of UC Berkeley. My focus is on college-bound students, so whether they are from high school or from community college, 4-year to 4-year transfers, as well as helping adult students who want to return to school.
Thank you, Lisa. And for those people who don't know me, I'm Belinda Wilkerson. My home base for college counseling is in North Carolina, but I'm actually in my home of my heart, Rhode Island, right now. I focus on working with students who are transitioning from high school to college, with a special emphasis on thinking about career interests, more in the realm of what kind of problems students want to solve out there. So this evening, I'm actually kind of thrilled because we have some special guests with us. So I'm just going to bring their names on the screen one by one. So I also teach the career information class at Providence College for folks who are in the master's program to become school counselors. And some of my students have joined us this evening. So I'm just going to put them on the screen one by one so we can say hello to them. So, hey, Grace, thank you so much for joining. I'm glad that you were able to make it. And then we also have Nicole. Nicole, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. And then we have Marcella. Marcella, thank you. Love that you came here because I know Marcella's like, she's on the super fast track. She's taking 5 courses this summer. She is my hero while working full time, while being a mom. Yes,
Wow.
she's one of those people. And then we have China. China, thank you so much also for joining. I hope as we move along with this, if you folks have questions, that you put them in the chat and we'll have an opportunity to answer your questions. So we were originally going to have this wonderful wheel of games that I found online, and we were going to do it, but because I don't have my second monitor and because it's doing some other crazy stuff, it's not letting me use it. Oh, we have some other people joining us. So we have Corey with us. Corey, thank you so much again for joining us. So these are all future school counselors who are working in their master's program. We have Leah with us. Leah, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you being here. So, the first thing, as we said, they're going off to college. They're on campus. They've had orientation, all that other stuff. Some of the most common problems. And we're just going to kind of go through them. We might be sharing our experiences because I was looking at some of these and I'm like, oh, yeah, I had that problem too. Yep, I had that problem too. But then some I didn't. So let's look at some of these and then random, not in any particular order. So, when students get an assignment and they miss their due dates, have any of you ever had an assignment in college and you missed the due date?
Yes.
I see my hands up. Definitely, definitely. So, what kind of advice would you give to students who miss the due date? Do you just not pass the assignment in? What do you do?
I'd suggest that they get a very good calendar of sorts and they can pick because they're all different kinds. You can have an online calendar or a paper planner or reminder apps that you can put your homework into. So that would be my first suggestion for those students. Some way to help to organize all of the assignments that are due and create a reminder system for yourself because it can be very overwhelming.
Yes, that is so true. Anyone else?
Well, I think I'll add that a big difference in college and high school is the amount of grace could be different. And so in high school, you may be able to turn in something because you missed the deadline.
Mhm.
But in college, you just really may be out of luck. So it really is important to do as Rosellen said.
Yeah. If I could
Yes.
add to that too, beyond just even being organized and find your own system for organizing yourself, is that missing dates may not be the end of the world, right? And so reaching out to the faculty as soon as possible, because if that assignment is 10% of the grade, that takes you down from an A to a B, that kind of thing. So be sure to reach out to the faculty ahead, as soon as you find out you missed a date. They may, lower your grade or may take off a few points, but at least you know whether or not you can even turn in the assignment, if it's even possible. To Amy's point, it may not be possible, but at least try and find out. And if they say no to the missing assignment, see if there's any way you can make up the grade with extra assignments if possible.
Anyone else want to add to that?
I think I'd just like to add, I think what Lisa said is very important. And it also will show the professor that you're not just blowing it off, right? That you recognize that, oops, I missed that date. What can I do? You're acknowledging, taking responsibility. And I think that that goes a long way with professors.
I'm going to go backwards if that's okay. I'm going to say before you miss the due date,
Okay.
back to what Rosellen was saying, read the syllabus. Professors tend to be very clear and organized about what's going to be due when over the course of the whole semester, not just 1 week at a time or 1 day at a time like you're getting in high school typically. So you can set up the calendar and the organization system like Lisa and Rosella and Amy, like everyone was saying, at the beginning of the semester so that you don't get caught kind of going, oh, wait, what? There was a midterm paper? I had no idea. Well, you did. They told you in the syllabus, which is why there's less grace, as Amy mentioned, in college, because they tend to be very, very clear way up front in advance.
And
That.
when I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but since we're talking about dates, something else I think is important is putting the last date that you can drop a class on your calendar and circle it. Drop ad for any class, but there will be one date that the college has, and it's just something you should be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
It's so
That's a
funny that
great
you should
point,
mention
Amy.
that. Yeah, it is a great point. It's funny you should mention that. Probably about a decade ago, I co-founded a kind of a parents organization, and one of the things I would do in my communication with them was to communicate key dates. And that was always one of the dates that I wanted to make sure that the parents knew to check in with their students prior to that time, so that if something needed to happen, like a student needed to withdraw from a class or whatever, that they did it within that legal time, so that that the transcript wouldn't take that hit if that was necessary. But having the parents know that as well, and it's a very key date on the academic calendar.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm still getting a lag over here, so I may be talking over some of you, but we're going to move on to the next challenge that a student may face. So here is the next one. Forming new friendships. That is key to having a successful transition to college. Anyone like to try this one on for size? I know this, Antoinette, I know this is one of your favorites because you have a saying that you tell no matter what about forming new friendships.
Yes, my motto is find your people.
Mhm.
And that, students, we as professionals, all of that. Yes, I do. That is one of my favorite lines. And I think it's kind of, when you go off to college, the goal is to kind of stretch yourself and step outside of your comfort zone a bit. But there needs to be some kind of commonality, usually, with the folks that you're kind of gravitating to. Whether it's when you're forming study groups, or friendships with folks in your residence hall, those kinds of things, and just kind of trying to stretch, but also be within your kind of your comfort, right? So it's often not a time to go 180 degrees out of what your kind of your normal routine or your normal set of interests or things like that. But finding your people, whether it's a smaller college or a larger college, and it's, like you could be in an honors program or something, or you could be in a group that, again, whether it's like it could be theater, it could be music, it could be athletics, but that's kind of often where you're starting to find your people with that common interest. But takes time, doesn't happen immediately, and it may change up, especially that first year as you
Mhm.
get to know people and they get to know you, and when people kind of show you who they really are and things like that. So
Mhm.
it's not a one and done.
Right.
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 Yep.
I would add to that that your people probably aren't in your dorm room with you. So you're going to have to leave your dorm room and meet people. And I say that because I'm personally more of a natural introvert. So the proclivity is to just stay with my people that I've known forever. So then you get on a college campus and that's hard for natural introverts. I have to go out and find new people and I don't have my extrovert buddy from high school who has been taking me around for 4 years, helping me make my new friends, introducing me. So you do have to go out there and extend yourself a little bit and take some risks. And like Antoinette said, it may not be the first person.
Mhm.
It might have to be the 10th or 12th person, but you're going to have to get out there and be uncomfortable in that way. If you're not naturally one of those people.
Yep.
Yep. That is
And
so
can I
true.
add to that too? Expect unexpected friendships. So people who maybe the janitor or the person who does the food in the dining hall or anyone could be a person that becomes a friend. And you never know how they'll help you out, especially if you get locked out of the dorm. You want to know the security officers. You want to know, be friendly to everyone. Never estimate or assume that anyone is below you or too high above you to become a friend. Could be a faculty who they become their friendship is more like a mentorship is where you might find some friendships there who are not peers, right? But don't think one level, think all types of people could be your friends and just be friendly as you put yourself out there.
And I think the great thing about freshman year is that everyone's a freshman. And
Mhm.
so everyone is new in college. And sure, there'll be some people who know people, maybe people from their high school, maybe not. But in general, it's new for everyone. And everyone wants a friend. Everyone wants their people. So it's not like you're, being thrown into a situation where everyone knows everybody and you don't know anybody. And I think most freshman dorms, they have, RAs, and one of their major goals is to create community on their hall. And again, those may not be your friends, lifelong friends. It may not be your hanging out on the weekend friends, but they will be, your community when you're in the dorm.
Right.
Such great comments. I mean, the one thing I may add is just give yourself time because it takes time to make a friend. So it's not like instant, oh, she's my best friend or he's my best friend. Like, just give yourself that time to know people and meet new people and get outside of your dorm and find your people. Like, enjoy the experience and be friendly.
Okay.
And I just think too, as parents who may be listening to this as well, don't put a lot of pressure on your child to be besties with their roommate. That just may or may not happen. And I think it's kind of you know, an assumption. Oh, well, that's, well, what about your roommate? And aren't you guys hanging out together? And I know I am really fortunate after all of these years, I'm still very, very close to my freshman roommate. But during the 4 years we were in college together, we hung out freshman year and kind of went different ways, but their friendship was always there. And 40 plus years later, the friendship is still very, very strong. And so when my son went to college and I was thinking, oh, I would love for him to have that kind of experience, it wasn't that they didn't have a bad experience, but they just didn't have that, kind of bonding. but his freshman roommate happened to leave college after the first year, but would come back to events and stuff. And so it's like they were hanging out more when he wasn't a student there than when he was a roommate. So, but that is, I just wanted to mention that because I do think as parents, sometimes we're hopeful and we have some unrealistic expectations. And I think that that can, put pressure on the student too.
Mhm.
So thank you for
One
that.
more thing.
As oops, as you can see, I'm still lagging here, so I might be talking over some of you, but we've got a few of these to get through. So here's one: overspending or misusing a credit card. Whew, that student debt is a killer. And if this
Mhm.
is your first credit card, a lot of times it will cause students to get into trouble. So who'd like to contribute to that one?
Be careful. Like, just realize they're coming for you. I mean, just
They're
be
coming
ready.
for
They're,
you.
they're
You
coming
said,
for you. And you are a target. You're a hot target. Your credit is clean. And it can go one of two ways, really good or really bad. And right now, you're not earning any income, more than likely. So just be careful that you are a target out there for credit
I
scam.
I think it's really important that kids and families establish a budget before the student leaves, and that it's a realistic budget, right? Like you have to buy hair products and toothpaste. Like you need things, so you can't just have no budget. You got to figure out how is this all getting paid for. But the credit card is scary, and I will rat out my oldest son, who the rest of you know is like, the gem of my life. But this boy got his first credit card his freshman year in college and called and said, "Oh well, I owe 200 and something dollars." What on earth he spent all that money on, I don't know. It says I only have to pay 15. So that's good, right? I'll just pay 15. This is a really smart kid, and I was like, "Are you who raised you? Are you crazy?" And so I had to walk him through this statement and say, "I'd like you to get to the bottom. What is your interest rate? Because you have no credit. Nobody trusts you." "Oh my gosh, it's 28%." So you do the math on that really quick. And he was like, "I have to pay this whole thing." Yes, you do. You have to pay the whole thing. So to echo Roselyn's be careful, like it's good to use your credit card and establish that credit rating so that you can have credit when you get out of college into the world and want to buy a car and these things. But doing that means you pay that thing off in full every month. And to do that, you have to keep your budget.
Mhm.
What's my
And
rant?
I think these days it gets even scarier because um, young people today, DoorDash and Uber Eats and all of that stuff, and it's kind of almost like play money because you don't really see
Mhm.
it. It's just being charged to the card, so tracking it is just not something they think about. So of course they get to the end of the month, and it's like get the statement, and it's like, whoo, didn't realize. So that is something I think to be very, very mindful of because it's easy. It's almost like out of sight, out of mind. I must not be costing me that much, right? Until they see
Mhm.
the cumulative effect.
Right.
And to be fair to the children, it happens to grown ups sometimes too.
Mhm. Mhm. So I'll suggest a tool that people may use. It's called You Need a Budget. And it's an online tool, and college students get 1 year for free. So that may be something that you think about. Um, YNAB, you need a budget. And again, like April said, it's for everybody.
So we have a comment from one of our members watching. Apple Pay is dangerous and accepted everywhere. It's
Mm-hmm.
so easy to get into trouble with that. Apple Pay, Google Pay, all of those pays. They are all dangerous. Thank you for that, Marcella. So here's another one that oftentimes happens for students. Um, Struggling with a concept in class. Do you just say, I don't know how to do this, and going about your business, what do you do?
Well, I was great in math. I loved math. And then my freshman year, I had to take calculus, and I was no longer good at math. And I actually failed the first quiz or test. Yeah. And so I would go to office hours, and it wasn't working for me. And then I went to the tutoring center, got a tutor. I'd never had a tutor in my life. And oh my goodness, it was amazing. And they were a student, which made it even better because, they were a math major, I guess. So I would always say, try your professor, but also tutoring centers can just be life changing.
Yeah.
At least you only failed a test or a quiz. I,
Yeah.
I failed statistics. Me and statistics went around a few times during my
Well,
undergraduate
I
years.
withdrew from it, and then I took it again. Statistics. Oh,
But the point about getting help, and it is okay to get help, and whether that
Mhm.
is, a
Mhm.
professor, TA, another student in your class, forming study groups. Yeah, make office hours and study groups your friends.
And you have the time, right? It's a different schedule than high school. You're not in class from 8 to 3 every day. You have one class 3 days a week, another class 2 days a week. So the office hours should be on your schedule calendar that we talked about earlier. You
Mhm.
should be planning to go for every single class. And
Mhm.
the tutors are huge. And since everybody's out in themselves, I personally had 2 friends that team tutored me through economics. No joke. Like, both sat in the same room with me and took turns. One would work for a while, and then he'd be like, "Lewis, you gotta help her. I can't do it." And Lewis could cover, but he was like, "Ed, tap in. I don't know." And they got me through it. They got me through it. It was hard. It was not my gifting, and that's
Yes.
okay.
mhm.
It's okay. And it's okay to struggle, guys, and the struggle's just life.
You're
Yes.
My
right.
daughter swears the reason she got through a class in college was because the professor felt bad for her because she would sit in his office hours every time, and so but I'm sure she earned her grade, but the professor did know she was trying. She really was. She was doing everything she was trying. So
Yeah. And if I can add to that, don't forget the tools you're already using in high school, right? Khan Academy, all those things are good, background basis that foundation you can build on. Khan Academy, Quizlet, even using AI. I tell my kids to use AI so they can get through an assignment, right? Where you're looking at it as not to do the assignment for you now, but if you have a question and you need to know, why you got that answer wrong, the AI can help you say, hey, why can you give me the rationale? Can you give me a link to that place where you found that rationale, and then you know if it's telling you the truth or not. But use your resources. I didn't have that stuff in school. You had to go to the learning lab and get a tutor and all this stuff. But use your AI, use your tools that you've been using to do your test prep and your studying. Take them with you in college.
Yes.
And that was a point I was going to make, Lisa. Let's not start these habits of asking for help in college. That is something that I encourage high school students. I mean, at all levels, really, but especially in high school, that is where you need to develop that practice of getting the help that you need and getting comfortable with tutoring and study groups and those kinds of things. It will definitely serve you well when you're in college. And I think that's one of the things that happens with a lot of students is that maybe they don't have to work as hard, or maybe they don't need help. Amy, like what your experience, you didn't never had a tutor in your life till you got to college, and it's like, whoa. And so the stakes can be greater, and you have to be more resourceful and be more take more initiative to plug into some of those resources. So the idea is start in high school. It's a life skill.
Oh, that's right.
Right. Thank you so much for that, folks. As you can see, my camera's still lagging, technology again. But these are all so important to understand because every student is going to experience these at some level. And it's important to know that you're not alone. So we're going to go on to one of the next concepts, which doesn't go away. So, trouble with the group assignment. Now, we're talking about undergraduate students. I just have to give the story when I was getting my doctorate and we were doing a group assignment. And somehow I got to be the group leader. And one of the people in my group, when he submitted his section, and I went back and I'm reviewing it, I said, "My, this sounds awfully familiar." So I looked at the textbook. My man had copied it word for word out of the textbook. This was a doctoral program. I'm like, oh no, we're not going. You are not having me fail this class because you want to cheat. No. And I'm thinking, this is we're adults. We're in teachers. We're in working full time. And I called him. We got to the group. I called him out on it. I said, hey, look. Here are your words on page 371, right here. So you need to do something. And if you don't fix it, I will be going to the professor because I'm not failing this class because you want to be stupid. So that's my story. So it doesn't end. It doesn't end in undergraduate school. But what kind of advice would you give to students that are experiencing, some difficulties with working on a group assignment?
I think to your point, Dr. B, making sure you have some group or what they call them group agreements. And sometimes that means, and I used to do this when I was an assistant dean of students, where groups came to me and said, I'm having problems with my group because this person didn't do that and or I did all the work. I would have them put it on like a Google Doc or Excel sheet, all the items that each person worked on, and turn that in with their assignment to the professor, right? But even before it gets to that point, working with the professor to say, hey, I've already talked to the student, like Dr. B talked to the student. The person hasn't made any changes. And so I'm letting you know ahead of time that this is happening in our group and can you do something to mitigate this process for us. So creating some kind of sheet to say this is what everyone has agreed on and whether or not they did it is something that's going to help you through that process.
Piggybacking on Lisa, communication is key. Be it with your professor, with the students in your group, and you may have to breathe deep sometimes. Sometimes you don't get along with the people in your group. They may not be your people, but you have to push through and hopefully successfully complete the task. So continue speaking to one another, speak with your teacher, but write everything down, be aware of the work that you've done, and keep a log, like Lisa said, but communicate. That's really important.
Yes. Any other words on that particular topic? If not, we'll
So,
move on to the next one. Let's see.
Wow.
Okay, I see those faces.
Mm.
I don't know why other people are making faces because I'm sure none of your children had this issue. It's just something that happens in my house. But I dropped one of my boys at an apartment, and of course, we went by Walmart, Target to do the shop. And I was picking up all the cleaning supplies, and he just said, "Mommy, nobody's using that stuff. Don't waste your money." I was like, "You will be using this stuff. This is for you." And somehow that one actually apparently is very clean when he's in a group living situation. I don't know how he comes home, socks are everywhere, whatever. But um, I think kids forget that it's not the fairies that clean up.
Mhm.
And one of my girlfriends was headed to parents weekend in the fall last year to see her daughter, and she called me and she said, this girl just asked me how often she's supposed to be cleaning the bathroom. It's been months.
Oh my
I think,
goodness.
like everything, I'm going to go back to Rosalind's schedule. It's a schedule. Put it on the schedule, make it happen, put it on the schedule, make it happen. I'm going to tell one more story. When I went for parents weekend and I stood in a room of boys with my son, and one of them just casually asked me, Ms. Eliane's mom, how often are you supposed to wash your sheets? No, it's the end of October. Every boy in the room was an athlete. And I said, this is just, can any of y'all promise me that you haven't gone to bed without like showering after training? On behalf of everyone's mama, all of you go to your rooms, wash your sheets right now. Everybody.
Yes. Yes. So China has said that when she lived on campus, she was surprised how many people didn't know how to use the washing machine.
Mhm.
Like that is so crazy. I know I
Mhm.
asked a group of students about what chores they have at home. Most of them had some chores, but one person said, "Yeah, I don't clean." I'm like, "Well, when are you going to learn how to clean?" And he said, "Oh, we have a cleaning person come in." I said, "Well, they're not going to college with you." I didn't think, who knows? Maybe they were. But again, so for parents that are listening to this,
Mhm.
please give your kids chores. Make them do the chores. Make them accountable for the chores. You don't want the first time for them to see how to work a washing machine or a dryer is when they get on a college campus, or else they're going to be bringing those dirty clothes home every time they come home.
Mhm.
So teach them well. China, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Anyone else about keeping that room clean?
Well, my freshman year, I lived in a suite, so it was
Mm.
two people in a room, a connecting bathroom, and then two people in a room. And my suite mate was, I believe, the nastiest person I have. It was horrible. Okay, and so we made a schedule because we were responsible for a bathroom. I don't know if many colleges still do that for freshmen, but we were responsible for our bathroom because we shared it.
Mhm.
So we made a schedule of who was to do what when. Um, the unclean roommate just didn't, I think we have to realize everyone's level of home training is
Mhm.
different.
Mhm.
Yes.
And I'm not even talking, just it just could be very different. And we found ourselves really having to teach her things that she just hadn't been taught. So, but you can't live in everyone has to pull their weight. And if they don't know how, then you may just have to show them. That's my point. Really, if I told stories of it, y'all wouldn't even believe me. It's so.
Oh my goodness. So the next thing on our list, struggling to begin a research paper. This is something I don't know about you folks, but I definitely experienced this one. I think I was the biggest procrastinator in college going and looking at those research papers. Oh my God, I remember my freshman year having a sociology paper that I put off and put off and put off until it was the night before. So guess who did not go to bed? Because that paper was due the next day. I learned my lesson. I said, I will never, ever do that again because it did not feel good. And it was a 9 o'clock class, so it wasn't like I had a lot of time in the morning. And for those of you who are younger, this is back in the day before you could use a computer to type out what you had to do. I was doing this on a typewriter with the red line thesis paper. So it was tough. It was really tough, but I got it done and actually got an A on the paper. But I will never procrastinate on a research paper like that again. Anyone else want to share their stories or how to solve this problem?
I
Use
like
the, oh, sorry.
Mm,
I would say use the writing center. Most colleges have them, and you should become friends with them earlier rather than later. Be as familiar with those resources that we mentioned earlier as you are with the cafeteria, because they're there to help you. And part of your tuition payments pay for that. So use your resources. And in terms of a research paper, that would be your writing center. They are really there to help.
anyone else want to add to writing a research paper?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and say sometimes the reason why we're stuck is because we're not clear on what we're supposed to be writing. And so you need time to think about what you're going to write. So sometimes procrastination may seem like it's procrastination, but it's really us trying to process it. So, needless to say, I had many late nights, like Dr. B talked about, without a typewriter, but many, many late nights because I'm a thinker. I need time to process and think. But one of the things that saved me most of the time was finding out, rereading that assignment for the research paper, and then looking at the rubric. And that rubric has headings in there sometimes that gives you some kind of, oh yeah, I can just use that rubric on excuse me, and all its headings to kind of get through and start my paper and create that outline that you're needing. So use your tools, use your resources that the professors provide. And if they don't have a rubric, ask for one. If they don't have a sample of the paper, ask for one. These are the things you can ask for in addition to using the resources like tutoring and so forth to help you.
So we have a comment from Grace. Thank you. She's grateful for innovations. Yes, because I'm telling you, staying within the lines on that red line thesis paper and not being able we didn't even have maybe did we have
Whiteout.
whiteout?
Did
I
you
think
have
maybe
whiteout?
I think
Yeah,
I did have whiteout then. Yeah,
we had
it's
whiteout.
it's been a long time. It's been a long time. But again, because if you could get all the way to the last sentence and make a big mistake and you had to start all over again, especially if the professor said no whiteout. And some used to do that, used to say no whiteout. So
Mhm.
yeah, that is something that definitely challenged me quite a bit.
It challenged everyone, Dr. B, everybody.
So one of our next oh yeah, it sure did. Sure did. So here's another one that's pretty common. Every student goes through this. And again, okay, here we go.
I'm going to go back to Roselyn's schedule.
Mhm.
You have to have a block of time that's for studying. And we all even know this in our businesses, right? I
Mhm.
remember starting when I started and I did a training program, and Amy was one of my mentors. And one of your pieces of advice was block the time to do your business work.
Yeah.
Okay, lo and behold, I'm a grown up. I don't need to do that. I can just make it happen. And sure enough, 6 months in, I'm going back and saying, you know what? People told you, April, to block time to do this. Why don't? And it's something about humanity, right? We all think we know better,
Mhm.
and the truth is we don't. So, um, block the time. Like you should be spending at least as much time outside of class doing work for the class as you are in class. At least. So if you meet 3 hours a week, make sure you have 3 more hours a week blocked off as a starting point. And then figure out how much more time you need for each of those classes. Because again, unlike high school, they aren't expecting you to do so much work in class. You are expected to be doing a lot more out there on your own. Um, so block that off. And then there's plenty of time to have fun. There's plenty of time. But you have to know when you're getting your work done first. I'm a hard nose. Sorry.
Th- Now, that's
And
not being a hard nose.
most, I think, if not all, colleges have a learning center of some kind, and there's a study skill specialist. So, there are people who, if you have not, some students certainly acquire those skills in high school, but many don't. And so, you can sit down with a study skills person that can help you with that blocking that April just mentioned, and can help you understand how much time you need to dedicate to reading, when you should start studying for a test, actually when you should start that research paper, all of those things. There are just a lot of different methods that can be used, and it's great to have one, to have a system that works for you.
You have to plan your fun, just like you plan all your academic stuff, plan your fun. If you have papers to do and exams to do, the weekend is not free. You are not free. You have to go and do the work, right? So plan your fun too. Plan time that you could say, oh, I'm ahead, so therefore I'm okay. I'm free on Friday night. If you're not ahead, then you need to work. You need to plan that time academically, but also plan your fun.
Mhm.
Okay, so we will move on to the next one, which actually piggybacks a little bit
Yeah.
with what people just said. Yeah. How do you approach studying for an exam, especially if you were one of those students who felt like you didn't have to study hard because you still got A's anyway? Now you're on a college campus and you're being challenged differently. So, what advice would you give to a young person that's struggling with this?
I, I'll say I had a student this year, actually a couple students this year who got their first math B, because now the kids are taking calculus in high school, not like when we all got to wait for college. And they got their first B, and I said, "Well, what happened?" He said, "I've never had to study for math in my whole life." So they had to learn, what are the skills? How do you study for math? How do you do a practice problems? What does that look like? And if you haven't done that before, we got some tried and true answers. That learning center is a great place to go and get help with how to break down the test and figure out your preparation for the test. Professors are a great resource for that as well. Um, and I would also say, and this tends to work easier for the athletes, but reaching out to older students who have been in that class or had that professor, and get a gauge for, like, what are they looking for from me? So you can get a little bit of inside information that way.
Mhm.
In April, I think your example when you say, sometimes this works well for athletes talking to older students, I think that kind of goes back to the first question one of the first questions that we responded to about forming friendships. And finding your people and things like that. And so it can be helpful to get out of just kind of the freshman or first year bubble and meet other students from all four grades that are there, maybe even some that are on a 5-year plan. But just to have a kind of a broad group, because that is a very helpful way, whether it's the content of the course or whether it's a particular professor and learning about some of kind of the maybe the nuances or the hot buttons or whatever of how a particular professor likes to assess via their exams.
Mhm.
But it also goes back to, just like you said, just utilizing the resources that you have, the study centers, the tutors, and those kinds of things.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we have a
Oh,
comment from one of our viewers
Mhm.
about, had to get away from those distractions and find that quiet space.
Mhm.
If you couldn't study in your dorm room or in the common room or what have you, then you had to go do whatever was going to make it work for you. And Marcella, going into a library is not dorky. Go,
it's
go.
it
You
it's
know what?
funny because when we go and tour colleges now, as counselors, and we go into libraries, I can't tell you the number of times I said I might have actually stepped foot in the library if it were had this kind of lighting, had this kind of
Mhm.
vibe, if it felt
Mhm.
this inviting, because I will
Mhm.
say I there were lots of libraries on my campus, but I did not become very acquainted with them. Did that show in my overall transcript? Probably.
Well, I was a proud library dweller. Okay. I liked the basement it, hidden. And I just want to say, Marcella, I'm a proud dork. No problems with it. And you know what? Nerds and dorks eat well when they're in their 50s. So it's okay. You're at college, and I'm joking, I'm not joking, both, but students, like, you're at college for a purpose. Feel like a student.
Mhm.
Yes.
And Antoinette's fine. So I don't know whether she libraried or not, but that's all good.
Truly, I did not library much. I have a much better appreciation for them now. Part of that is thanks to Dr. B and her love of libraries. But I do like going to these places and go, that is so inviting. I would have
Mhm.
done that. That might have helped.
Mhm. Yeah, they're super nice.
That is
Yeah.
so, so true. Libraries, love them, love them, love them. So here's one. Now, I never had this problem only because I never had a roommate. I lucked out. I always had a single.
Hmm.
That's nice.
Yes.
How did that happen? How did you always have a single? Like you never had a
I,
roommate?
I never had a roommate. So my first 3.5 years, I lived on campus and I just never had to share a room with anyone. I mean, the first year I was in a suite with 10 girls, but everybody had their own room. And then they opened a new dorm and we had like the Jack and Jill bathroom, but again, it was a single room. And then the last semester I moved off campus because I was student teaching and the school I was student teaching at was in walking distance of my house.
Hmm.
So I never had a roommate. Yes.
Wow.
So what do you tell young people that are having these issues with roommates?
Ooh.
Sometimes getting a third party like your RA involved, and not in a telling on each other way, but really just in a conflict management sort of way. I think that can sometimes work.
Yep. I think that's a great idea because that's what they're actually there for.
Mhm.
Part of their responsibility is to make sure that your experience in the dorm is a positive one. So use your RA and try to communicate with your roommate. Um, my roommate tried to have an extra person there, so it was built for two, but she wanted three. And I didn't room with her the next year, but speak to your RA. They may be very helpful.
Okay, thank you for that. We are having some technical difficulties, but we will get through this. For those of you who are just joining in, we are discussing beyond orientation, thriving in your first year of college, and we're looking at some of the most common problems that all first year students experience at different degrees, some more than others. But again, it's really important that, if possible, you have those conversations ahead of time. Now, this one I'm putting up, this is one that we're really seeing a lot more. Well, so we want families to be having conversations about how do we deal with this beforehand. So, would anyone like to start us off on a possible solution to this?
Again, I'm hoping that, this starts before college in terms of figuring out how to identify and tap into resources when you're experiencing stress. And again, knowing that it is more than okay to get help to help you manage stress. I think, kind of finding whether, maybe it's like, kind of you manage stress by taking a walk or kind of removing yourself from a stressful situation, talking to someone, the counseling centers, again, like, maybe starting with your RA if you're comfortable doing that, but looking at the resources that are available on campus. And if you have a history of stress or depression or those kinds of challenges before going to college, actually when you're even looking at colleges, then make sure that that is something that you are researching about a particular school and what kinds of resources that they have, so that you know that, okay, there would be support, there could be support, and finding out where those resources are, like first thing as part of orientation, ask those questions, know it's okay to know what it is you need and go find it, right? And then learn more about that and tap into it.
Right. That
I
is
agree
so
with
true.
that, Antoinette.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lisa. Oh.
Are you
Me,
on mute, Lisa?
I, oh, I think I am. Let me repeat. Sorry about that. I see a lot of students, they come to the college campus and they stop doing the things they normally did when they were in high school, such as taking your medication, right? Make sure you stay on your medication.
Mhm.
Someone has in the chat going to those counseling center. That's going to be pivotal. The coping mechanisms you use in high school, bring them with you. And if you don't have them, go to the counseling center to get some. Because if you used to do yoga just to manage your stress, find a yoga center on campus. If you used to play basketball, go play basketball. Find a place on campus, but do not stop doing the things you normally used to. If you used to swim, there's always a swim place on campus. So do the things you normally used to do. Don't stop doing it, because part of your stress level and your mental health and social health all depends on you being well.
And just a little bit of pre-planning. I'm going to piggyback on what Lisa said about, don't stop doing the things you were doing, right? Especially those medications and things like that. Make sure you take enough with you and that you have a plan for refills, because sometimes the medication you're being prescribed in one state, you can't go get it filled in another state. So you need to talk to your providers in advance and make sure that's going to work. You need to think about, if you're seeing a counselor regularly at home, can they see you if you leave the state?
Mhm.
Or do you need to get set up with someone else, and make sure you're
Mhm.
organizing those things in advance, because this isn't there's already so much transition and upheaval happening in your life. This isn't the time to experiment with, let me do it different, right? Let's just stay the course with what's been working.
Mhm.
That's some great advice, April, because I think
Mhm.
when young folks are transitioning to college, they're like, okay, I'm an adult now, so I can do this on my own, not recognizing that they were able to do it because of the assistance, whether it was a person helping them, whether there was, some medical assistance, but understanding that there shouldn't be a stigma in needing that extra help. That's one of the things as a society that we need to work on is ridding ourselves of the stigma of people needing help. But that is so important. I love what you just said. So we're gonna kind of wrap this up with the last one because we're coming up to an hour. Um, Antoinette, did you want to add something?
Yeah, the one thing, I think it's really important too, for again kind of that parental lens as well, making sure that parents know what a college or university's policy is in terms of
Right.
being able to communicate about mental health related issues for their child, because that will vary in whatever forms you need to have signed. Make sure that you have them on file, so that if there is, an urgent situation as parent, then the school is able to speak with you, because it's nothing worse than being a parent and not being able to have access, knowing that their child needs
Mhm.
something, needs some assistance. And so just kind of wanted to mention that as well.
That is so true. I mean, it's not automatic that parents can call the school, and the school's not going to call them unless there's been an agreement signed in the office already giving the college permission to do so, because whether your student acts like it or not, they're considered adults.
Hmm.
They're considered adults, and that information is only going to go to people that they give permission to receive that information. So, again, all of those documents that you need is really important. And here's one of the last things that we'll discuss this evening. You get that first report card, the first grading period, and it's not quite what people expected. How do you have that conversation? What do students say to their parents?
You know, adults, first of all, adults don't do it all by themselves. Like any real adult will tell you that they aren't surviving on their own. And so this is part of it. Like, why do we wait to get to the report card to then be like, oh shoot, I didn't get good grades this whole term? Like, you had a whole semester where things were not going the right way. Why didn't we talk about it earlier? That's part of adulting.
Mhm.
Um, and usually, okay, listen, there's some parents that are just going to be like, figure it out. But for the most part, parents are going to like lean into like, okay, did you go to the learning center? Talking about the same kind of things we're talking about and helping you sort through what you need to do to get this done.
Yes.
Um, and maybe you're in the wrong major,
Mm.
right? When my daughter went to college and she was like, I'm going to be a doctor like my big brother and study neuroscience. And I was like, oh Lord, we're in trouble. And that lasted about half of a semester. And she was like, wow, I hate this science stuff. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Yes, you do. And now she's an early elementary teacher, and that was great. But getting her off of the wrong academic track made a huge difference for her.
Mhm.
Yes. Anyone else? Any suggestions or comments?
I really like the term that you used, April, adulting. Um,
Mhm.
like it's something that you'll be working on for a very, very, very long time. So this is great practice, being able to speak to your parents about where you are in your life and how things have gone in your life. Um, Grades are just part of the picture. So um, speak with them and let them know where you are.
And I would say, parents, it's okay to ask questions during the semester. To April's point, you shouldn't know this at the end of the semester. You can ask for your daughter's or son's login to see their grades, or sometimes some schools actually put the mid-semester grades in the system so you could see it. But this shouldn't be a surprise to you. So even though the school won't give you this information, having your son's or daughter's login can be helpful. And another thing too is, in terms of performance, a lot to Rose Ellen's point, it's just a small part of the picture. So going back to everything we've said, their study habits, the need for tutoring, all those things should be things that you should be talking about before they get to Thanksgiving dinner. You need to know that you're settled in, and ready to go.
Yes. That is
And
so true.
knowing that status before that withdrawal date.
Mhm.
I mean, it's just really important, right? So let's have that conversation. So,
Yes.
and here's another thing, because I sort of learned this the hard way, is that okay? So if you are needing to withdraw from a class, understand the full implications and the grade recovery policy
Mhm.
for your institution.
Mhm.
Because say if you get, if you are doing a grade recovery, you may have to take that class the immediate next semester. But and if you do that, then it may take units away from when you originally took it, which could have, this is my lived experience with my child, it had implications for scholarship, but we just weren't familiar. So, he had to he retook a class, he had to take it the immediate semester following when he got the D. But they took the units from that original semester, which took him below the required that he needed for the scholarship that he had. And so there was this whole process. So really just understanding, which is one of the reasons that I had kind of co-founded this parent group, because there are just little nuances like that. But it's those kinds of policies that both the student and the parent need to be aware of. So when you're having those conversations about performance, about, how you're doing, okay, well, maybe you need to withdraw that class. But if you do that, these are the implications. Or if you're changing your major, okay, if you change your major, because it may not be that first year, it may be the second year. And it's like, what does that mean in terms of your goal to get our collective goal for you to get in and out in 4 years? So just understanding that things aren't always just kind of neat in a little package. They're, like they're tentacles to implications, and just knowing those kinds of things too.
Yes. And I just wanted to leave us with the comment from Marcella about be honest, have a
Mm-hmm.
plan. Have
Mhm.
a plan. Okay, so this
Mm-hmm.
didn't work out. What's your plan to make sure this doesn't happen again? What's your plan to recover from that grade? But again, have a plan. So come to your parents with a plan. So think about it. Um, I thank all of you fabulous people for being here. I'm always so thrilled to hear your commentary. So happy to hear the way that you strategize with your students. And you're always so willing to share your own lived experiences because, yeah, we all went through this and it was the good, the bad, and the ugly sometimes.
Mhm.
So usually I end with the book. Well, you know what? I have to end with the book because if I don't, it will like make my day like really nasty. Um, so this is actually a book I showed before, but I'm going to show it again. And let me see if I can get it up here on a full screen. Still doing that stuff. Oh, this is right. Okay, this is called HBCU Made. Oh, I've got it on the blur screen, so it's acting up. It's HBCU Made, a celebration of the Black college experience. So for students who are interested in HBCUs, this is a nice book to read because each of the authors are sharing their experience at a HBCU. And again, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But it's a great way to go beyond just going on the campus and hear from people who actually had that experience. So, again, thank you all. Thank you, Antoinette, Amy, April, Rosellen, Lisa. I really appreciate you ladies being here. Folks, you can see us on the second Monday of every month with the different topics. So make sure you tune in and check on my Facebook page, and you will see what topic we are talking about next. Hey, and if there's a topic out there that you think we should talk about, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. So thank you all for joining us, and we will see you in another month. Take care, everyone.
Bye.